So you wrote a book called Manliness which was published in 2006. Sorry,
Mhm.
I mistook it for 2016, but it's a very interesting book. I'm reading it, and it is chock full of insights and wisdom. And I recently mm, read a piece you wrote on Commentary Magazine about Trump's manliness, and one of the things I gathered from it is that, well, American society these days, as a result of what you call the gender neutral society, mm, posited
Mhm.
by 60s era feminists, have basically viewed manliness as something to be discarded or even a danger. And Donald Trump, who is an exemplar of manliness, although very vulgar and uncouth manliness, won the hearts and minds of the ostensibly the majority, or at least the electoral college. And
Mhm. Mhm. All that is, I think, correct. Yeah, that's what I wrote, and that's what I think. That yeah, that Trump made an appeal to people on that basis. He was the first, and still perhaps the only politician who attacked political correctness. He used that phrase.
mhm,
So, and then a supporter of his recently, Senator Hawley of Missouri, um, gave a speech on the lack of manly spirit and the failure to value and take advantage of manliness in America. So this is what I predicted. I'm going to take credit for a prediction in the last chapter of my manliness book
mhm,
that that lack of employment, unemployment for manliness. There's nothing for a manly man to do or to show, no way to show his manliness is going to cause trouble.
mhm,
And I think that is seen in the rise of Trump. And there were a lot of, it isn't only men that voted for him, also a lot of women who themselves, kind of sort of contrary to feminism, have a liking for manly men, admire them, and that's the kind of man that they want to be with or think well of. And, but yes, Trump, as you said, is uncouth, to put it mildly. Yeah, he goes beyond the bounds of decency, and he seems to be totally absorbed in his own self, in promoting himself, and that in a way is unmanly. The manly man, I think, is the kind of person who wants to take charge of things where there's a situation of danger or trouble, um, of risk, who likes risk and seeks it out, and has the has the ambition to do something about it, rather than just sit and watch or hope that things will get better. And so that kind of spirit, um, he shows, Trump shows only by swaggering, by disregard of decent people and decent principles, and by a total self-regard and self-promotion. So it's a caricature and a perversion of manliness, but still it appeals to, I think, people who miss it in our present gender neutral society.
mhm.
Now, the gender neutral society is becoming more gender neutral, and that is not different really from becoming more feminine. So that the way a gender neutral society looks is not that the genders are neutral, but that the women have the advantage because they're gaining advantage. And that's so so it looks as if we're undergoing a process of feminization, which is to some extent true. You see that very much in the universities today.
Mhm. Yeah, they one remarkable aspect about the feminist revolution is that it is non-violent. They attack
Yeah.
the languages we're using, and like you've said in the book, all of the men just says, "Okay, well, we'll do better."
Yes. Right. Yeah. So their system was what they called raising consciousness.
Yes.
That comes out of a kind of bastard Marxism of, um, of the Frankfurt School Marxism, which focuses on the word consciousness
Mhm.
in Marx and makes consciousness much more than Marx himself made of it. So so you raise consciousness, and one way to do this is by changing pronouns, so that um, you no longer use masculine pronoun for an impersonal
Yes.
usage. You
Mhm.
don't say the doctor he. Why should you call the doctor a he, assuming that it's a man?
Mhm.
So the doctor you must say is he, she, or
Yeah.
even they. Some pronoun which uh, abstracts um, from the male sex. And so just now at Harvard, all these things change slowly. Instead of referring to freshmen, which means the first year um, students, students who just arrived, and freshman is a nice expression for them, fresh. You could, they're not just now just called first year.
Mhm.
And then the second year is by sophomore, junior, and senior. So they don't say first year and then second year, third year, 4 year.
Mhm.
So um, so that's just an instant systemic feminization.
Mhm.
People say that America is suffering from systemic racism, but it's really more systemic feminization that it suffers from right now, I would say.
Wow. Yes. Just a bit of an aside. I find that one of the books that very much predicted or foretold the Trump phenomenon is Charles Murray's Coming Apart. And I'm sure
Yes,
you've read this, or maybe you've even met him.
yes,
Um,
well,
to go back to our example of the college undergraduate and you being the lecturer of, say, political philosophy 101, if, say, a student comes to you and says, Mr. Murray is a racist or a racialist because he wrote this one book in which one of the chapters mentioned uh, the disparities of IQ among races,
mhm,
and I'm sure he or she has not read Coming Apart, which is
mhm,
a very apt book, which is a very telling book, which again predicted the
mhm.
Trump phenomenon. I wonder, what would you say if you say anything at all to convince them that, Mr. Murray is otherwise?
Well, he's pretty good at defending himself, but he'll ask you to what particular sentence in his book
Mm,
you object to, and then he'll defend that sentence. So he doesn't like to defend himself sort of in general terms, which is what you're asking for. Yeah. So it's a way of showing graphically
mhm,
this coming apart. There are these two Americas that he speaks of.
mhm,
That um, that the unity, uh, which liberals take for granted, that the whole to which in which they want to include everybody, that doesn't exist, and that there is a big difference between the intellectuals on the one hand and those whom they influence, the educated you might call them, and the less educated or uneducated, don't no college education, or and that is just one way of speaking of the way in which America is coming apart, and that is a a real problem which one must face.
Mhm.
So it isn't really productive to call him a racist for pointing to addressing a situation that exists. And then he's got a new book out called Facing Reality,
Yes.
which develops this the reality of say the average IQ among Black citizens, and also their tendency towards criminality. So, in looking at America, you have to try to understand. Maybe Murray has it wrong. Maybe is a little too much devoted to social science. That's something I might say,
Mhm.
but still, it's it's not something simply to denounce.
I see. So my personal view on Trump is that I hope he runs in 2024, but I really don't hope that he would win because Trump running in 2016 means that much of what Murray says in his book is true. The country, America, is coming apart, but
Mhm.
I don't expect Trump to be the grand unifier. Um, I'm curious about what you think.
Um, yes, I think Trump is now obsolete, and that the good that he did always was muffled or even obscured by the evil that he did. But um, we got through his 4 years as president um, more favorably than I expected, because I never liked Trump, though I kind of like the people that like Trump. So that's my particular situation. So, but nothing really bad happened during his 4 years, and some good things happened too, especially the appointment of conservative judges. But when he lost, that I think there he disgraced himself.
Yes.
There he did something that very bad that many people, including me, feared he would do during his office. He did well until he lost, but he doesn't know how to lose. That's the trouble. This is why he's so unmanly at the end of it. That he appeals to manliness, but he doesn't know how to lose, and in that sense, he's really a loser. He's one who makes a big deal of the difference between winner and loser.
Mhm.
But that's whether you win is often a matter of chance, or in part of chance. So if you get shot down in an airplane like Senator McCain, that doesn't make you a loser.
Mhm.
And so he lost the election, and he couldn't stand that. He still can't stand it, and I think that so he's tried to keep the Republicans focused on his loss rather than their possibilities and the country's possibilities for gain. So I do hope he will not run in 2024, or if he does, that he won't succeed in the primary, and that some other Republican will be put up and succeed against Biden.